Hello, hello, hello. Okay, so what I thought I would do is I have this painting. I thought I was done. The next morning I looked at it and I realized I am absolutely not done. I'm going to pop the reference photo in so you can see it. I might try to leave it there in the corner for the majority of the time of the video because I think it's super helpful to have that within view as you're painting, as I'm trying to repaint this, as I'm showing you how I'm trying to fix something that I felt is unfinished. And I'm not a stickler necessarily for doing exactly as a reference photo says or shows. And it's funny because I'm not at all. Because the colors are so vibrant in this, I feel like that it does definitely need another layer and it needs more work. Okay, and I don't think it necessarily is terrible. I just feel like compared, if we're doing the comparing game, right? I feel like if you're looking at it next to the original, it's just not a comparison. Okay, I also want to point out that I am using Artify brushes, which are very, very, very inexpensive. Brushes that I actually really love. They reached out and they said, do you want to try them? And I thought, oh my gosh, no, I do not, quite honestly, because they didn't look like something I would want to use. But that was me judging a book before I really delved in. So I dived in and I really love them. And so I'm really, really happy with them. And I've been using them almost completely. I do still reach for my Tintorettos and my Polinas, but I've been really using a lot of these lately, and it's not because I feel obligated to. I really enjoy them, and they're working for me for right now, and so I'm in a phase of using them. So I'm really enjoying these brushes. So that being said, let's jump in. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to re-wet the sky, and we're going to go ahead and bring more color to the sky, bring more depth. If you see how over here, the color is okay. This side I think needs to be a little more moody. I don't know. Well, now I'm debating whether I do touch the sky. Will my birds blur out? I don't really want those to necessarily go away. Or, you know what, instead of re-wetting, why don't I just start adding some colors where I would like to see some colors. So let's mix up some orange and maybe some pink with a little bit of, I'm gonna grab this blue. That was the wrong blue. It's okay, I made a nice brown for later. I know you can't see the colors I'm mixing, and I don't want you to get so hung up on what I'm mixing. That's kind of why I get in the habit of not really showing too much of what I'm mixing, because I don't want you to get hung up. I want you to explore and try the colors that you have and really work with those colors. And they don't always work. Sometimes, especially when I'm thinking about it, my colors don't mix up as well. If I'm not thinking about it and it's very random, my colors usually work up great. Just that intuitive kind of feel. But when I'm doing like what I'm doing now and talking about it, I feel like it's going to be much harder to get the color I want. And that's okay. It just is what it is. I'm going to take some of this jazzberry color. It's a purple. And I'm going to use it to define these clouds a little bit more. And by doing that, I'm just dropping a little bit of color. I'm rinsing my brush quickly. I'm dabbing off the excess water. And then I'm just going to go in here and blur that up real quick before it dries. I'm just hoping, and rinsing again and drying again, I'm just hoping for maybe some more texture. And I don't love it, okay? So, not a fan of what I just did, but then I'm going to take my orange again and I'm going to go back in, and where it's wet I can add more color and I can just play. Whether this makes it better or not, I don't know. It may or may not, right? It's definitely highly questionable. And that color is like a very, very interesting pinky, that color you see in the right-hand sky cloud, the cloud in the sky is just very, it's not even really a name for that color. It's a corally, orangey, fiery color. I'm gonna use my Ben's orange from Masha and just dab some of that in there. I don't even know. So there's some of that orange over here, but it's more like a gray by that point, right? So I'm gonna drop some of that gray in there, that brown color I'd mixed up with the wrong colors. And You know, it's just kind of a fiddle game. There's no like, there is no, for me anyway, there is no formula for the perfect kind of thing to work out for me. It is, for me, it's just a lot of fiddling and fussing and kind of moving things around and seeing what works and what doesn't. Watercolor can be really forgiving. So I feel like if you don't like something you do, you can kind of just blot it out or blur it out or just kind of blend it back in. You can lift it out. You know, you can find a lot of tricks and ways to kind of help yourself and fix things that you may or may not really like. And so that's kind of what I'm just doing here. I don't want to get too close to my birds because I feel like they have a nice spot there, but I do kind of want to give just a little bit of more. I'm just playing again, and I'm watching for hard lines. So I'm just going to go back and kind of tap those out a little bit and make sure that, you know, so that's kind of what was lacking here. And I'm not one for, oh, I must make this look exact. I'm not that kind of person. If that's you, that's awesome, that's fun. It just doesn't work for me. I'm not a detailed person like that. I don't like replicating something because I feel like the whole point of me creating art is for me to figure out what I can do with something and make it mine, right? Versus trying hard. And I do a lot of tutorials, so don't get me wrong. I'm definitely always trying to, in a way, kind of replicate things, right? Because I'm always working on other people's tutorials. I love doing other people's tutorials. I think it's super fun. I learn so much. I branch out in different colors I may not normally use. I maybe learn techniques that I don't use, or maybe they do things in different order than I typically do. And I love that. Absolutely, absolutely love that. Whether or not I did much to that sky, it's highly debatable. But let's go ahead and kind of look at the image. So you can see the divide between the sky and the actual start of the land, I feel is very, very defined in the picture. Mine, it's more rustic, and I think maybe it needs to be a little more defined. So as I'm looking at that, I'm just thinking maybe I'll try that. We need to get a little more defined up here. There is a little lookout point. I'm probably gonna skip that. So it kind of gets pretty defined right here. So I'll leave that there. And then I'm gonna rinse my brush again. And I'm gonna go in and kind of just loosen up that line. And so my paper is dry. And I might get watermarks there because I did feel like I had a little excess water. So I'm just gonna watch that as it starts to dry, and I'll fiddle with it as I need to. So there's a little bit of orange that touches right here. A little bit of light that hits this mountain from the reflection of the sky. Mine's a little bit different. They have a lot of blue hitting here. Mine's like this muddy purple messy thing that I made. So not the same, but again, that's okay. It doesn't have to look the same. It can absolutely look different, and that doesn't make it, you know, any less. I could try to go in there with some of this color, but I feel like that might not work, since that's not the color I was using in the first place. But maybe that could help break up. I'm just trying things. It's okay to experiment. You can do this again, and you can get to this spot again. I'm gonna take my little rag I have here and just dab out some of that color. You know, nothing's set in stone. This isn't permanent. It's just paper. I cut my paper down, so technically this is even a full sheet. So, you know, just keep trying things, because you never know what's going to work. And you never know what's going to be like the, ooh, that worked, right? And then you can turn around and use all those, ooh, it worked on the other things, you know? I'm going to go back and forth from side to side, I think, and maybe mess with this side a little bit. I feel like this one, maybe we'll just define this a little more. I feel like there's a fun patch of yellow. I do want to bring that in right here. A little bit of brighter. I'm going to grab some ochre. I'm just going to touch that in right next to that. And it's not necessarily yellow, but it's a lighter area. And so now I'm going to take my brush again. This is just a lot of back and forth, right? Back and forth, blending those two together, letting that kind of define without making a strict line. I'm going to grab some green again, kind of a little bit too much yellow, and just push that green into the yellow a little bit so we have more of a Okay, and you can also drop some green in some other spots so it doesn't look like you just put a bunch of yellow down and it looks awkward, right? So again, back and forth, fiddling around, messing with things, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't, changing some things, leaving others. And again, so this side, not again, but this side, left side of the waterfall is a little more darker and defined. So we're gonna take some, I'm gonna grab some kind of brown. I'm not going to mix it up. I'm just gonna use a convenience brown I have. And then I'm gonna add a little tiny bit of hematite black in there, a little bit of hematite brown, a little bit of another brown, a little bit of blue. So when you're mixing this brown, even though I didn't say I was gonna mix it, I was gonna use convenience, you wanna add other colors so that you're not just getting this very plain one brown color, right? So that when you paint with this brown, it'll show different and it won't just be one. So we're gonna come down kind of closer to the sea foam, the mist. I'm gonna turn my picture around. I often turn my work upside down, all around, and so we're just gonna kind of dab in some dark, just so it's up against that white and gives a much more defined water. And you know, obviously, once you get some light in there, the light helps show the dark more. So it's helping your contrast and helping you. Okay, so I'm getting too much dark down here into my misty area, which I don't want. So I'm trying to make sure I'm breaking up that misty area fast before it becomes some sort of weird hard lines or any kind of weird lines at all. It is a little fuzzy right here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take some clean water and I'm just going to soften that line up against the water a little bit so that we don't have this hard white line, right? We want this to kind of break up a little bit and have some texture and have some variances. We don't want it to just be some black blob that we shoved in there. And then people wonder why there's a big black blob there. So I'm just gonna kind of dry brush and add some textures to the side of this mountain to kind of break that up. Maybe I'll drop some over here if I can get it to go. When dry brushing, I feel less is more. I think it can be overused and then it becomes kind of, I don't know, kind of obvious looking to me, and kind of too obvious maybe. But you may love it and that's okay too. Do what you love, do what you like, do what makes you happy. I'm gonna put a little more dark down here. I feel like to accent this rock, and there is just some little bits of color coming through the mist here. I don't know how to really paint mist myself. I've just added little bits of colors in there. So this is more of a demonstration. I hope you don't take this as a tutorial. I'm just kind of showing you what I'm trying as I'm trying to fix this. Doesn't mean it's going to work. Doesn't mean it's advice on how necessarily. Maybe I'm just giving you options for you to try different things and choose different things. Or maybe you have a picture that you're kind of worried about trying to fix and you're like, oh, I don't really want to try it to, you know, save it, or I don't really want to mess with it. And then maybe this will be like your little push to be like, okay, you know what? Amber did it live on a video. I can do it. I'll try it. Okay, so down here, I feel like we were kind of missing out on an opportunity to showcase some really pretty greens. I'm gonna take a little bit of Masha's dark shadow and a little bit of her serpent, and I'm just gonna drop those in there, and then I'm gonna do like I have been and kind of soften everything up. I'm gonna take some more serpent and I'm gonna drop it in up here too, and maybe just bringing it down this side here. Okay, now again, we dry off our brush, make sure you're wiping it pretty consistently, cleaning it consistently, wiping the water off again. And, you know, you don't want to bring in too much water and introduce blooms and you know, all sorts of crazy stuff. And actually, if you do, it's okay too. Like, texture is fun. I don't think it's a problem if you get a little bit of extra texture in there. I personally don't. Some people would. And that's okay, but I don't know. I think it's fun to add a little bit of extra. And so now I'm gonna take some dark brown again. And in those spots that I just kind of used wet paint in, I'm gonna add some darker values to add some contrast. But they'll end up looking hopefully like rocks. And so I'm just gonna add those textures because they're kind of all over. If you look closely at this, there's just, you know, rocks and greeneries and rocks and greeneries. And it's just this whole big mass of rock, really, right? It's basically a rock with a bunch of green on it. And so, not really a big fan of this one. I feel like it might need to be a little darker. Maybe that will help pop the mist. Again, my mist effect is leading a little bit more to be desired. So let's go in here with some gray, because I feel like it gets darker over here and I've kind of lost that. And I don't know, again, necessarily what I'm doing on this part. And I think sometimes, you know, tutorials are hard. This isn't, again, is not a tutorial, but I feel like sometimes when you're doing a tutorial and you're trying to figure out how to, you know, paint mist or paint something, a lot of it really is just trial and error and trying things over and over, and different techniques and different things you see, and different ways different people do stuff. And so that's really just what I'm doing, just taking different things I've seen throughout the week and trying them on my own to see what works and hopefully what ultimately helps, right? Ultimately trying to get better at this, and you know, would like to make better art, or better versions of my art. Not necessarily better art, just better versions of me. I'm not necessarily about being better than somebody else. I just want to improve my own work on a daily kind of basis, right? Daily, weekly, monthly. Honestly, I'm happy with any progress. It can be yearly. I'm not super, I don't know. I'm pretty laid back when it comes to progress and stuff like that. I don't put a lot of pressure on myself to, contrary to what you may think, to like learn, to be better. I do put pressure on myself to learn. I think that's hugely important, but I don't think me pushing myself to be better in that way is super beneficial. But I do love trying new things and trying lots. So I'm just going to take a dry brush and just kind of squish everything around, soften things that have maybe are still wet, and they might not be. Everything might be dry and I might have not done a darn thing, and that's okay too. And it's okay. Again, experimenting, testing things out, trying things, seeing what works for you and what doesn't. I'm gonna just drop a little bit of yellow in here. I'll go back here, maybe here. I'm just dropping a little bit of a warmer yellow in here. You know what we never did? We never finished this very top of this mountain up here, and so I do want to give that a little more of a crispy, more crisp line. Whether or not it's all dark, I kind of don't want to make it all dark, so let's get a different color here. Okay, and there we go. And it's not meant to be super dark because that area isn't very dark necessarily. The mist starts to hit, but maybe by adding that little bit of dark, it'll show the mist more, right? The dark helps promote the light. Promote, I'm not sure that's the correct word, but you know, it works. So let's just kind of loosen that up a little bit in there. Take our brush and just loosen things. And this side definitely feels a little more Sharpie, but that's okay because a lot of those are kind of rocky areas, and I feel like that can lead to that, and that's okay. Okay, there is a little bit of dark at the bottom. I do want to add that in. Maybe it'll work as a little bit of a base right here. There's just a little bit of a dark land mat, like where the beginning of the rock formation kind of starts. And we're just gonna give that a little bit of color down there. And so I'm going to also re-wet my brush here a little bit. And I do have a before picture, so I will add a before picture. All right, our photo reference does have a human in it. I'm not going to be painting the human. For me, humans don't add much to my style usually. Sometimes I'll do humans, but not very often. And if I do them, they'll literally be the dot, the triangle, and the two legs. Very, very simple, very, very loose. That's how I like it. I don't like to get crazy with my humans. That's just me. If you like to get crazy. And also, I'm not very good at it. So for me to be getting crazy isn't as productive as somebody who's really good at it. And so if you're good at it, go for it. That'd be awesome. One day maybe I'll be better at them. Or maybe one day I'll have more confidence. Maybe one day I'll practice more. That's all it really is. It's just practice, right? So let's leave our white space, right? We don't want to do that. What I'd rather do is darken up the areas that already have color versus trying to cover up the light areas, right? We want to retain those warm color, those colors we already have going on, because that's an essential part. You want to definitely hold on to that light. Let's go with a little more dark over here, the bottom right hand side where we see the land kind of meeting that rock. Maybe we can just go in here like this a little bit. I don't know if that's completely necessary. I didn't include a lot of that ground area because I didn't really need it to be a feature. But I definitely want it to be reflective of the sky a bit, right? I want someone to be able to recognize that it is a part of the sky, and it's there. And you know, I suppose we could do a little bit of dry brushing on that beach to make it more of a rocky textured area versus how I have it now, which isn't very. Maybe that will help ground it some more instead of being so light like I had it. I did have it pretty light. And it's definitely darker in the picture, so maybe that will help. I do like to leave the little bits of negative space. You'll see little bits of negative space in there. I do like to leave those. You don't have to. Totally personal preference. I do like them, but that doesn't mean you have to leave them. I'm gonna just put a little shadow under my rocks, just a tiny bit. You might not even be able to tell, but they're just there a little bit. I don't know if that's a rock or what that intended to be. And that's okay. We don't have to know. All right. I think that, okay, I do like how, okay, this is the only side right here where I can see that I did not finish my line. So let's get that blob of paint off there. And let's get a, ooh, you know what? I can use my old favorite orange color. I haven't touched in a really long time, and maybe just a hint of hematite brown to that. And then we're just gonna go in here. Nope, too dark. All right, we're gonna grab ochre. Okay, just a little bit of ochre to kind of break that up and still leave that orange brown in there. All right, and then I feel like this starts where the mist starts happening. And so I'm just gonna kind of blur that out a little bit there. Okay, so this area is a little browner up in here, right below all this starts happening. Right below the mist, some brown stuff starts happening. And so I'm just gonna add a little bit more color right there. I feel like there's a lot more brown under this mist right here that I'm ignoring. Probably because I don't know how to handle it really. And I'm just kind of guessing. Now I'm gonna stand up and look to see how I feel. This white area is very distracting, isn't it? It doesn't even feel like mist. It just feels like a lot of white area. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some brown and I'm just going to tone it down a little bit. I'm just going to start kind of bringing it in here, I guess. I don't really know if that's going to be what it needs. Maybe a little bit down. It's a little bit darker down here too. It's a little more blue in there. I feel like it definitely comes down a little more, like I missed an opportunity to bring it down. So maybe I need to just kind of edge it down a little bit. And it's okay. It's okay to wing it. You know, we don't have to know exactly what we're doing. We don't have to understand how a waterfall works necessarily. I know that might be considered an underservice or a disservice, right? To tell someone that they don't need to understand how that works. But sometimes with art, I feel we don't have to always know. I mean, there are schools of thought where we do. We need to study it and study it and study it and understand exactly how everything works and how all the shapes, the negative shapes, the contrast and the lowlights and the highlights and the everything in between and, you know, all the scales of everything. And I don't know, sometimes it feels like too much. And for me, sometimes I just want to paint. Whether or not I do all those things inside my head intuitively and I don't realize I do them, for me, it's just spending time sitting here painting, sometimes chatting, sometimes watching something, sometimes watching a tutorial, sometimes, you know, answering comments while I'm painting and things are drying. I'm doing all sorts of different things. And this is just another way to ground me back into kind of what I love. And, you know, teaching isn't what I love, but demonstrating and sharing and encouraging and all those things are something I really, really love. And so that's, I guess, where all my stuff stems through. I don't feel like I'm at the point where I can teach, but I do feel like I can share and show and demonstrate certain things, maybe the way I do them or the way that I've seen them being done more than actually doing them sometimes. It's not like I make these things up, right? Often people are like, oh, I saw that you took so-and-so's idea, or so-and-so took someone's idea, or blah, blah, blah. They're not their ideas to take, right? These ideas have been around for a really long time. These ideas are not new. There's nobody taking somebody's, you know, there to make a sun. Like a circle is a sun. You can't take someone's sun shape and call it yours. You can't take the shapes of clouds and say, oh, well, that's the way I do clouds. There's very few instances where you can do that. And there's, you know, so many different schools of thoughts that, you know, don't do reels, because then it shows the techniques they use in the tutorials. And, you know, then I try to go back and make sure my tutorials or my reels don't share too much where you don't have to watch it, because I totally get that point too. I mean, people put a lot of time into making tutorials and reels and whatnot, and definitely we need to be mindful of, you know, having it come off as our tutorial. And I often will be in the comments correcting people. No, it was a tutorial. That wasn't me. Or, you know, you got to credit so-and-so because that's their tutorial originally. And I see people are getting a lot better about that, which I really appreciate, because I don't want to come off as that person. You know, I never, ever. I'm always giving credit. And if I forget to give credit, it is truly because I forget. And I have forgot before, and I've had to edit and, you know, add that credit back in. And that's okay too. It happens. We're all human, right? Sometimes you get just so concerned with all the stuff you're putting in, and, you know, tagging all the right tags and making sure there's, you know, the right music, and I don't know, there's just a lot. And so sometimes, you know, I get distracted. Okay, I'm trying to add a little bit in here without having it just be a white blobby space. All right, so I'm thinking the trick to fog and mist is just having those light values just there with a hint, more than actually painting. You're not painting anything necessarily, but just making sure you have some colors in with those areas. All right, let's stand up and look again. You know what? I might just call this. I'm not sure I even still have enough. Maybe I need some like a brighter color. Do I need a brighter color down in that waterfront area? I feel like maybe I just need a hint of red with my orange, even though I don't really have that in the sky. Not really truly, but it does give the illusion that I have some sort of definitely brighter color. So I'm gonna add that brighter color down there. That red can pretend it's kind of mixing with that orange, and maybe just making a darker orange versus adding red. And so again, watercolor is a lot of give, take, right? Add some, take it away. Add some, take it away. Take it away, blot it away, wash it away. There's all sorts of ways to kind of work with watercolor and work around some of the parts that we might think are, you know, not going to help us or not going to change. So I didn't end up doing much with the sky. I do wish I had done that left side a little bit better. You know, kind of is what it is, I feel. I'm not sure maybe I can break up this one a little bit. I feel like this one, let me see if I could just kind of break that blobby cloud up just a little bit. And I'm just taking a wet brush, but I'm making sure there's not a lot of water on it. And then I'm just kind of trying to wet in some areas and then take out some color and then just smear the rest of it with my brush, loosen it all up. And so hopefully it's slightly less. I'm just trying to break up these sharp edges so it's more of a fluid blob versus just one like stickler blob, I guess. And then let's get this little light area. Just looks silly. Sometimes paint will kind of just I don't know what it's called, hop over an area and just kind of leave it. I don't know if it's oils from our skins, and then we touch the paper. See, that one just doesn't want to go away. We could add just a bit of dark maybe over it. Just call it another cloudy area. There we go. And twist and turn your paper as much as you need to. Play with it, manipulate it. I did try to get that light under those clouds. Didn't work so well with me. We'll just throw in a little bit of more cloud here so that that light will pop. There we go. Maybe that light will show a little bit more. I did get a little too much water in there, so let's go back in with some actual paint. So now it'll leave a watermark versus paint. And so then what we want to do is loosen that line. Okay, so we just want to break that apart. We want to leave that white area that we had though. Okay, so, and sometimes seriously things don't look like they, you know, did anything at all, and it's okay. Technically you could go in, you could take some really watered down bleed-proof white if you wanted to, and you could maybe, if you wanted to, you could maybe just highlight under these clouds just a little bit if you wanted to. And I did water it down quite a bit, so it might not even show up at all. But you could maybe just put a little hint of it under there. I'm just using my finger to smudge it so it's super imperfect. You don't have to do this, but sometimes the little bit of light would, you know, would bring back potentially some brightness for you. And so I'm not a huge fan of whatever I did here. I'm not super sure what happened there. Maybe I should just bring in some more yellow and just kind of, yeah, that's better. Whatever that white thing was going on was, I wasn't a fan of that, so that's better. And sometimes the tiniest things can just make you feel better, and that's okay too. It doesn't have to do anything for anybody else, right? If it feels right to you, try it. If it makes sense to you, try it. And yeah, again, I don't want to go overboard with white with the bleed proof. I'm not going to, but I did just want to show you that that is something you could potentially add if you were feeling like you lost some of your whites and lights. And you could also take a razor and pick up some of those too but that would be more on horizon or something if you wanted like a bright white line. And so that's not something you'd want to use necessarily in this situation, but could be used in other situations. And this little part right here, kind of bugging me. Let's just add a little bit of a darker green. Break up this rock. It did some kind of funny thing. And we're just going to kind of blend it a little bit more. Blendy, blendy, blendy. Often I will just grab random colors from my palettes to kind of blend and make that more of a random color, right? And so when people ask me my colors, I often will not know, or I won't remember, but it is often because I will just grab whatever's available. And it's very intuitive for me, so I won't really necessarily know what I'm grabbing. I just kind of grab it without thinking too much, honestly. I don't overthink my colors. That's one thing I usually don't do. If I think too long, it just usually doesn't work out for me. So just kind of grab whatever's available. It looks like a giant pickle. There's a giant pickle in my picture. I mean, I like pickles, but I didn't know that a giant one would be in my painting. So giant pickle it is. I guess that's just how we'll roll with the giant pickle. All right, I'm gonna take a little bit of brown, a little bit of green, and still going at this. So see, when it feels right, you kind of stop. If it doesn't feel right yet, then just don't stop yet, right? It has to kind of feel right. Something has to click and be like, okay. Right? It has to kind of make sense for you to be ready to be done. And again, I'm just kind of adding in these rock formations. And again, taking away a lot, right? Kind of just trying to get them to look organically natural without trying too hard to replicate what I see. I'm not trying to replicate what I see with these. I'm just trying to suggest the rocks, suggest the differences in the landscape, suggest the terrain a little bit. And it's hard unless you're a super detailed person. And I'm not, clearly. And so they can be hard for me. And that's okay. I think it's certainly, it's perfectly okay for things to be challenging and not come easy and to take some time to learn. I think there's a lot of pressure to be really, really good at something, especially here on Instagram, right? And to show it off as being really, really good. And clearly that's not me. I don't like to do that. What I do like to show you is my daily practice, my daily struggles. And I don't mean it in a woe me, I'm terrible way, right? I mean in a holy crap, anybody can do this. This is accessible if you want it to be. You can do this too if you want to put in the practice, right? I'm not trying to be like, holy crap, this is another one sucks. But a lot of them do suck sometimes, right? And it takes a lot of work and a lot of struggles and a lot of time to put into improving. All right, I'm gonna stand up and look again. I think, see, this area is still so white when I stand up, and so is this area, but I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna stop. I'll stop, do what I did again, take off the tape, check it out, and I will look at it compared to the one I did, the second version yesterday, right? The take 1. This will be take 2, and we'll see if I need to re-add the tape for a third time and see if I need to do another layer. And it's okay if I do. That's sometimes just how things work out. It doesn't always, but sometimes it does. So let's take this away. Let's take a peek at it. And I think that's probably just where I'm going to leave it today, for now anyway. And we'll see if that does end up being the final result, or it does not. And it's okay if it's not, right? It's just for fun. So again, I'll leave that little image up on the left-hand side. Thanks for joining me. This was a longer one. Probably going to edit a little bit out, so I hope you enjoy what I leave in and the thought process and chatting my way through it. And I'll see you next time. Bye.